Hey guys, this is Grant coming to you with a little Wednesday night devotional, hoping that even though we're not able to meet together regularly, we're going to try and supplement some of our meetings with maybe 2 to 3 of these videos a week. So even though we're not able together, we want to create some sense of community and continue to give you guys something to think about and some thoughts that might draw you nearer to God and nearer to each other. I don't know if you guys have heard the changes in some of the language that's been used as we have been encouraged to maintain our distance from each other. Early on, the terminology was social distancing, and lately people have been changing and using a new phrase, physical distancing. I really like this change because even though we do need to maintain physical distance as we try to keep this virus from spreading, as we're responsible stewards of our health and other people's health, what we don't need is social distancing. As a matter of fact, in this time, socially, we need to grow closer together. Our relationships need to be strengthened. We need to feel that we're all in this together. So I really like this new terminology. We all know physical touch is good. We all know that good hugger, that person that can just wrap us up, and we know what it feels like to be hugged by someone that we trust and that we know loves us. My family is not a great hugging family. I've tried to be better at it, but it's not something that I necessarily do naturally, but I've always loved those people that had that ability to just give that hug that can warm your heart. Sometimes when our loved ones go on, it's their hugs or their physical touch that we miss the most. Jesus recognized the power of touch, and he even used touch in his healings. With Jairus' daughter, we know about that story. We know about the woman with the hemorrhages, both in Luke chapter 8. We also know in Mark chapter 8 about Jesus' healing of the blind man, of him using mud and even spit. Can you imagine the heat that he would take from the CDC as he wiped he made mud with spit and wiped it in this man's eyes so that he would be able to see. So we know that Jesus understood the power of touch and even used it in his miracles. But there's also times when Jesus did not touch people. He did not touch them to heal them. The lame man that was lowered through the roof in Luke chapter 5, Jesus simply told him to take up his mat and walk. In Luke chapter 6, we have this story of a man who has a withered hand, and he's simply told to stretch his hand out, and when he stretches it out, he's healed. In Luke chapter 7, we have the story of a centurion who does not even come into Jesus' presence and is not even himself trying to be healed. He comes, the elders from his community come to Jesus on his behalf to ask for his servant to be healed. And what happens, right? Even though he's not touched, even though he never comes into Jesus' presence, even though he's an emissary, he has emissaries for him, he himself is an emissary for his servant. What we know through Jesus' response is that this great faith that he has, that seems not to exist within Israel according to Jesus, is rewarded. Now, this story reminds us of a few things. The first thing it reminds us of is that Jesus has the power to heal, and that his healing does not have parameters. There is no parameter of touch, of proximity, or even words that have to be spoken in the presence of a person who is sick for Jesus, for God's power of healing to come in and be present and heal that person. The second thing, we see Luke continuing to reverse the social order of the day. We see this in Jesus' interaction and elevate women within his ministry, from his recognitions of Gentiles and their place in the coming kingdom, for his recognition of tax collectors and sinners, and here in his healing and humanizing of what essentially would have been a slave. The centurion humbles himself. He doesn't exercise his authority, and this is the centurion we're talking about, but he humbles himself. He trusts the authority of Jesus. And interestingly, many scholars think it is likely that he was retired, that he retired and moved back to the place he served in the military, where he was enlisted in the Roman army that was subjugating the Jewish people. And here he is submitting to the authority of a Jewish teacher, recognizing that both him and his servant are under the same authority. And finally, we notice that the centurion is valued by others more highly than he values himself. Look at verses 5 and 6. And by the way, if you haven't turned there, I'm in Luke chapter 7, verses 1 through 10. But look at verses 5 and 6. In verse 5, the elders who come to see Jesus say, "This man deserves to have you do this because he loves our nation and has built our synagogue." And then the centurion sends word and says, "Lord, don't trouble yourself, for I do not deserve for you to have to come under my roof." So what we notice here is that the elders believe that he is worthy, even though he believes he is unworthy. So there are 3 points that I really want to make from this text. Number 1, even when you feel unworthy, you mean the world to someone. If you ever feel down or you ever feel worthless, someone out there loves you and sees you as more worthy than you see yourself. And one of those someones is God. He values you just as he valued the servant that he healed. Number 2, we are all created in the image of God, and we are all equally worthy to God, regardless of race, class, or gender. We are all equal image bearers, as this centurion had no more worth to Jesus than his servant, and the Jewish elders had no more worth than the centurion. We are all equal bearers of the image of God. And finally, even though we may be physically distanced, we are not socially distanced. Jesus' healing was just as powerful from afar as it was face to face. And I would argue to the one who needed to be healed and to anyone that needs to be healed, sometimes it doesn't matter how the healing comes. So in this time of physical distancing, what I want to encourage you to do is not allow this to become social distance. If you think of someone, call them, send them a message, say a prayer for them. As some of you have already been doing, we have had several members that have been doing this. And there's another situation I want to point out directly of a member, and I won't use their names because I haven't asked their permission. But they've left gifts for each other in mailboxes. They've been leaving gifts for other people in their mailbox. They can identify themselves if they want to, but I'm not going to. So even though we are not physically present, we can be socially present for each other. And that's what we need, because even though Jesus was not physically present with the servant of the centurion, from a distance he was able to heal this servant. And what we know, even though this centurion did not think he was worthy to have Jesus under his roof, we know that Jesus has declared us worthy. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in their midst. Jesus is willing to come into your home today. Thank you guys for listening. Again, we'll send you more information, and we're going to try to do a few of these a week. God bless.